Michael was seated in his wheelchair with his hands firmly gripped in his palms inside the lobby of one of the largest IT companies in New York. Lappy attempted to contain his excitement as he gazed hopefully at the CEO in front of him during his fifth job interview. The executive looked at his resume and his face was inscrutable. Michael, although your resume is great, we are unsure of your physical capabilities for this role. Michael asked in a steady but firm voice, "What does physical capability have to do with this office job?" The executive hesitated for a moment, but didn't alter his response, saying, "We just don't have a position that would be suitable for you." Michael's chest tightened physical capability, but his mind was his greatest asset. Wasn't that what mattered? Michael had experienced this similar situation innumerable times, and as he exited the interview, doors continued to close in his face. Not because he lacked aptitude, but rather because people perceived him as the man in the wheelchair rather than an engineer. He had studied for years, graduated from prestigious universities, and won prestigious awards, but his wheelchair overshadowed all of his accomplishments, making them invisible. With one last glimmer of hope, he applied Amazon's upcoming innovation event, believing that this would be his last opportunity. His hands trembled with frustration. He would be forced to give up the innovation event, which featured a display of enormous digital screens, holographic presentations, and cutting-edge technology. If he failed here, young entrepreneurs, CEOs, and investors occupied the room as they talked about the future. When a group of investors finally arrived, Michael's heart raced, and he immediately started presenting his project, an AI-powered bionic prosthetic system intended to improve mobility for people with disabilities. But no one paused to listen. Those who passed by glanced at him for a moment before continuing on without even acknowledging him. One of the investors cut him off. "Raising an eyebrow seems like a great idea, but wouldn't it be difficult to handle? I mean, for someone like you." A hot wave of anger welled up inside Michael, not again. Then, through the throng of people, a familiar figure, Jeff Bezos, appeared. He put his coffee down and studied Michael's project. "Telling me what you're working on." Michael froze for a moment, but then a fire lit up in his eyes. This was his moment, his last chance. Michael inhaled deeply as he sat across from Bezos. For the first time, someone seemed to be paying attention while the world around him seemed to fade in this enormous hall full of investors and business titans. He wasn't staring down at him, and the man in front of him wasn't thinking about him. Jeff Bezos was sincerely trying to comprehend him by staring into his eyes. Michael reclined back a little in his wheelchair and started to describe his concept, which is a bionic prosthetic system powered by aids that would transform mobility, gives consumers a totally natural experience by reading brain signals and moving accordingly. Bezos looked over the papers on the table and found that the formulas were perfect. The schematics were expertly created. In addition to being a brilliant engineer, Michael was a visionary who had the ability to spark a revolution. However, Bezos paused his page turning and searched the number of companies he had pitched this idea to. Michael tensed. Having responded to this question dozens of times before, but none of them took me seriously. The hardest response to provide was why Michael's voice trembled, so Jeff narrowed his eyes and furrowed his brows. He looked at the paperwork in front of him for a second, hesitated, and then bent his head. "Since I don't have legs." There was a heavy silence in the room, which Michael was accustomed to because people usually looked at him sympathetically, changed the topic, or politely ended the conversation. However, Bezos' expression changed. There was no sympathy, shock, or understanding. Instead, there was anger and understanding. Michael looked up, surprised that no one had ever asked him that question before. Previously, everyone had always praised his courage and perseverance, but no one had ever assessed him as simply an engineer. Leaning back in his chair and letting out a big breath, Bezos put the papers back on the table, clasped his fingers together, and met Michael's eyes. "This project isn't just for people with disabilities. It's for everyone. It could usher in a new age for those with disabilities, but it won't only alter their lives. It will also revolutionize the tech sector as a whole." Michael's eyes lit up. Bezos paused to consider whether there was something special about this individual. Discrimination, corporate obliviousness. Not being able to see Jeff Bezos, the engineer who could create one of the most revolutionary inventions of the century, was ignored by the world. He leaned forward and appeared serious, asking whether he could make this happen with just a lab, a team, and limitless resources. The same words had plagued Michael for years. This job isn't for you. You can't work here. Someone like you could never succeed. Yet now one of the world's most prosperous businesses was giving him limitless opportunities. Michael's breath seized in his throat. After closing his eyes for a moment to allow the gravity of the situation to set in, Michael raised his head and said, "Yes, but no one has ever given me that chance." Jeff Bezos grinned a little before reaching into his jacket pocket, taking out a business card, and setting it on the table. Someone had just done that. With trembling hands, Michael reached for the card. This wasn't just a job offer. It was an opportunity to take back his life. But what Michael didn't yet know was that would be a turning point for the world. A few weeks later, he found himself inside one of Amazon's largest research laboratories. However, the difficulties hadn't ended yet. Some engineers were skeptical, asking how a disabled man could be sitting down and developing technology. But Michael crushed all doubts in a matter of weeks. He made groundbreaking progress, optimizing the AI software, doubling the bionic prosthetics response time, and made adjustments that accelerated the project's timeline from months to just weeks. One day, one of the engineers reviewing his calculations froze, eyes widening. This can't be right. He quickly gathered the team, and they went over the numbers once more. They were struck with the realization, like a wave. When Jeff Bezos entered the lab, he saw Michael at his workstation, totally absorbed in thought. He walked over and leaned and asked how things are going. And Michael looked up. His eyes no longer held the same doubt or hesitation. There was fire in them, and we were just getting started. Michael had not only made the prosthetics faster, he had also reduced the system's error margin to almost zero. At an international technological conference a year later, Michael's groundbreaking bionic prosthetic system was introduced. Thousands of people cheered as he took the stage, but one person in the front row was clearly proud of him. "Bezos, Jeff. I hired this man, therefore I'm not shocked." Before Michael's eyes welled up, "I'm shocked that no one else gave him a chance." For years, people had denigrated him, but now they were cheering him on, and he realized that this wasn't a true victory. The real triumph was creating opportunities for individuals like him. Suddenly, everyone with a disability could pursue their goals. This wasn't merely a success story. It was a revolution.